Captain Olivia Warren stood at the main viewing window of the Earth Defense Fleet ship Retribution. The stars stretched out before her, cold and distant. Her reflection showed a woman with short brown hair and eyes that had seen too much. She wore the dark blue uniform of the fleet with 3 gold stripes on each shoulder. Her hands were clasped behind her back as she waited. "They're here," said Lieutenant Paul Evans from his station. His fingers moved across the control panel. As he spoke, Warren nodded and turned away from the window. "Tell Admiral Carter it's time." The meeting room on the neutral space station was designed to make everyone feel uncomfortable. The lights were too bright. The air was too cold. The chairs were too hard. This was on purpose. Uncomfortable people wanted to finish meetings quickly. Warren sat at one end of the long metal table. Admiral Joseph Carter sat next to her. He was an older man with gray hair and a face marked by years of difficult decisions. He had fought in the AI wars 20 years ago. Those wars had taught humanity how dangerous it was to create enemies who could think. Across from them sat 3 Zorlaxians. They were the 3rd alien species humans had met since achieving faster-than-light travel. Unlike the peaceful Arcturians, or the distant but respectful Meridians, the Zorlaxians had been nothing but trouble. The aliens had scale-like skin that changed colors in the light. Each had 4 eyes set in a face that reminded Warren of Earth insects. Their bodies were thin but strong. They moved in ways that seemed too quick, too sharp. The one in the middle was Supreme Commander Zexatral. The translation device in the center of the table converted his clicking sounds to English. "You requested this meeting," Zexatral said. "We are busy. Speak." Warren felt her jaw tighten but kept her face calm. She had been dealing with the Zorlaxians for 6 months now. In that time, they had taken resources from 3 different human colony planets without permission. They had damaged research stations. They had ignored all requests to stop. "This meeting is a courtesy," Warren said. "One last chance before we take more serious action." The Zorlaxian made a sound that the translator didn't catch. The 2 aliens beside him made similar sounds. Warren recognized it as their version of laughter. "Action," Zexatral said. "Your species is barely out of its nest. You have ships, yes. You have weapons, yes, but you lack experience, you lack will." Warren opened a small device and pressed a button. A hologram appeared above the table. It showed images of planets, moons, and space stations where Zorlaxian ships had taken resources without permission. Eden Colony. Harvest Station. The Armstrong Research Base, she said, pointing to each image. "These are just a few examples of places your ships have damaged in the past 6 months. Our government has sent 17 official complaints. You have ignored all of them." "Resources exist to be used," Zexatral said. "If you cannot protect what you claim, you do not deserve to keep it." Admiral Carter leaned forward. His voice was quiet but carried weight earned through years of command. "Before we reached the stars," he said, "humans fought each other. For centuries, we perfected the art of war against our own kind. We became experts in violence, strategy, and revenge. Trust me when I say this. You do not want to push us into showing you what we learned during those dark times." The translation device went quiet for a moment as it processed his words. When it finished, the 3 Zorlaxians looked at each other. Then they made that laughing sound again. "Threats from a young species," Zexatral said. "We have heard such things before. The Meridians claimed they would fight too. The Arcturians said they would never surrender their outer colonies. Yet here we are. They learned to accept their place." "We are not them," Warren said. "No," Zexatral agreed. "They were smarter." Warren kept her face neutral, but she felt anger rising inside her. The Zorlaxians were so sure of themselves, so convinced of their superiority. She had met people like this before, back on Earth during the resource wars. People who believed their power made them right. People who thought they could take whatever they wanted. They were always surprised when someone finally fought back. "Our final warning is simple," Warren said. "Stop all unauthorized harvesting operations in human territories immediately. Leave our colonies and research stations alone. Respect our boundaries." Zexatral stood up. He was taller than Warren had realized. His upper set of eyes focused on her while his lower set looked at Carter. Your threats are as empty as the space between stars, he said. We will take what we need, as we have from a dozen lesser species before you. The meeting was over. The Zorlaxians left without another word. Warren and Carter remained seated as the door closed behind the aliens. They didn't believe us, Warren said quietly. No, Carter replied, his weathered face grim. They never do. They walked back to their ship in silence. The neutral station was busy with beings from many different worlds. Warren noticed a group of Arcturians watching them pass. The tall, slender aliens with their pale blue skin nodded respectfully. They had been the first aliens humans had met 5 years ago. They had helped humanity understand the complex politics of interstellar relations. Back on the Retribution, Warren went directly to the command center. The ship hummed with activity as crew members worked at their stations. Screens showed star maps, communication feeds, and sensor readings. Status report, Warren said to Commander Maria Foster, her second in command. All systems normal, Captain, Foster replied. She lowered her voice. How did it go? Warren shook her head. About as expected. They laughed at us. Foster's expression darkened. What now? Now we wait, Warren said. We gave them their chance. We'll see what they do with it. Admiral Carter joined them. He looked tired, but determined. I've seen this before, he said, during the AI wars. Our enemies thought we were weak because we tried diplomacy first. They saw our attempts at peace as proof of fear. What happened then? Foster asked. Carter's eyes grew distant with memory. We showed them how wrong they were. Warren looked at the main screen, where a Zorlaxian ship was pulling away from the station. It was larger than the Retribution, with sharp angles and weapons ports visible along its hull. Hopefully they'll reconsider, she said. But if they don't... She left the sentence unfinished. They all knew what would happen if the Zorlaxians continued to push. Humanity had been peaceful in its exploration of space so far, but Earth's history was full of war, full of conflict, full of hard lessons about what happened when peaceful people were pushed too far. Set course for Eden Colony, Warren ordered. I want to inspect their defenses personally. As the Retribution prepared to jump to faster than light speed, Warren couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible was coming. The Zorlaxians had dismissed humanity's warning as empty words. Soon, enough, they would learn the truth. 3 months passed. Life on New Eden Colony continued as normal. 7,000 human settlers worked the rich soil, built new homes, and looked up at unfamiliar stars each night. Children went to school, farmers tended their crops, engineers maintained the colony's power systems. No one expected any trouble. Lieutenant Gregory Daniels was on Earth when the emergency signal came through. He was enjoying a rare week of leave, visiting his parents in their small house by the ocean. The call came at night. His communicator buzzed 3 times, the code for urgent fleet business. Daniels, he answered, stepping outside onto the porch, so his parents wouldn't hear. Report to headquarters immediately, said a voice he recognized as Commander Foster's. New Eden has gone silent. 6 hours later, Gregory sat in a briefing room with 20 other officers. Admiral Carter stood at the front, his face grim. At 0300 Earth time, we lost all contact with New Eden Colony, Carter said. No distress? Signal. No communication of any kind, just silence. Gregory felt his stomach tighten. New Eden was one of humanity's most successful colonies. It had strong defenses, good people. Initial scans show unusual energy readings in the planet's atmosphere, Carter continued. We need to know what happened. First response team leaves in 30 minutes. Gregory was assigned to lead the ground team. As he prepared his gear, he tried not to think about what they might find. In the 5 years since humans had begun exploring the stars, no colony had ever gone completely silent. The journey to New Eden took 18 hours in the fast scout ship Harrier. Gregory spent most of that time studying maps of the colony and preparing his team. Ashley Dixon, a young specialist with expertise in communications, sat beside him. Do you think it was them? She asked quietly. The Zorlaxians? Gregory didn't answer right away. He didn't want to guess without evidence, but in his gut he knew. "We'll find out soon enough," he said. The Harrier entered New Eden's atmosphere just after dawn local time. Gregory looked out the window as they descended. From high up, everything looked normal. The main settlement was visible, neat rows of buildings surrounded by fields of crops. But as they got closer, he saw the damage. Burned fields, collapsed buildings. The colony's tall communications tower was bent and broken. "Life signs?" Gregory asked the pilot. "None showing on scanners," the pilot replied. His voice was tight with tension. They landed in the main square of the colony. Gregory led his team out, weapons ready. The morning air was cool and still. Too still. There should have been sounds, people working, machines running, animals in the distance. Instead, there was nothing. "Spread out," Gregory ordered. "Look for survivors." For 3 hours they searched the colony. They found empty homes with meals, still on tables. They found schools with lessons half written on boards. They found the colony's small hospital with medical supplies scattered across the floor. But they found no people. Not one of the 7,000 colonists remained. "Sir, you need to see this," Ashley called over the radio. She was in the colony's administrative building. Gregory found her in a small room filled with computer equipment. Some of it was damaged, but one screen was still working. "I managed to access the security system," Ashley said. Her face was pale. "There's footage from 3 days ago." She pressed a button and the screen showed a view of the colony from above. At first, everything looked normal. Then dark shapes appeared in the sky. Large ships, angular and menacing. Gregory recognized them immediately. Zorlaxian harvesters. The footage showed the ships landing, showed strange creatures emerging, tall, insect-like beings with weapons. The colonists tried to fight back, their defense systems activated, firing at the invaders. But there were too many. The last part of the footage was the worst. It showed the colonists being herded into transport vessels, not just adults. Children, too. Families being pushed along by Zorlaxian soldiers. "They didn't just take our resources," Ashley whispered. "They took our people." Gregory felt cold anger settle in his chest. This wasn't a raid for materials or technology. This was something much worse. "Download everything you can," he ordered. "We're taking this back to Earth." 24 hours later, Gregory stood in the United Earth Parliament building. The Grand Hall was filled with representatives from every nation. President Natalie Collins, a strong woman with dark skin and silver hair, listened as Gregory reported what they had found. When he finished, the room was silent. 7,000 people. Gone. President Collins stood. She was not tall, but she had a presence that filled the room. "For centuries," she said, her voice clear and firm, "humanity wondered if we were alone in the universe. We wondered if we would find friendship among the stars or conflict." She paused, looking at the faces around her. "Today we have our answer. The Zorlaxians were warned. They chose to ignore that warning. As of this moment, we are at war." The vote was quick. No one spoke against it. Within hours, every ship in Earth's fleet received new orders. The message was simple. Find the Zorlaxians. Find our people. On the military station orbiting Mars, General Frank Morrison watched the news with a grim expression. He was 62 years old and had not commanded troops in 15 years. But he had led Earth's forces during the worst of the resource wars. He knew how to fight an enemy that didn't play by rules. His communicator buzzed. The message was from President Collins herself. "We need you," it said. "Earth needs you." Morrison closed his eyes briefly. He had hoped to never fight again. "But some enemies gave you no choice." "I accept," he replied. Across the solar system, ships began to move. Soldiers prepared their gear. Scientists turned their skills toward weapons development. Earth had been peaceful for many years. But the memory of war remained. On the Retribution, Captain Warren received her new orders. She read them carefully, then called her crew together. "The Zorlaxians have attacked New Eden Colony," she told them. "They have taken our people. Our mission is clear. Find them. Save who we can. Make the enemy pay for what they've done." "Commander," Foster stood at her side. "They'll expect us to negotiate," she said, "to ask for our people back." Warren shook her head. "We tried words. They didn't listen. Now they'll learn what happens when you threaten humanity." As the Retribution prepared to depart, Warren thought about the meeting months ago, about the warnings that had been given, about the laughter of the Zorlaxians. They weren't laughing now. And soon they would understand exactly what they had awakened. The hunt had begun. General Frank Morrison stood in the war room of the Earth Defense Fleet flagship Vengeance. The large space was filled with officers and tactical specialists. Screens covered the walls, showing maps of space, known Zorlaxian positions, and battle plans. Morrison was older than most people in the room, with gray hair and lines on his face from years of difficult decisions. "The Zorlaxians believe they understand warfare," Morrison told the group. "They do not. They understand conquest against the defenseless. We will show them what happens when they face an enemy that fights back." He walked to the main display and touched a control panel. The screen showed a map of space, with red marks indicating Zorlaxian bases and fleet positions. "Our plan has 3 parts," Morrison said. "First, direct assault forces will target these main bases and fleet groups. Second, our fastest ships will search for our captured people. Third, special teams will disrupt their supply lines and gather information." Looked around the room, meeting the eyes of each commander. This is not just about winning battles. This is about finding our people and bringing them home. Commander Samantha Fuller listened carefully. She was 35 years old, with short black hair and intense eyes. Before the war, she had led special operations missions on Earth. Now she had a new mission, perhaps the most important one of all. After the meeting, Morrison called her to his private office. "Fuller," he said, "I have a special assignment for you. Intelligence suggests some of our people are being held at a Zorlaxian processing station near the Arcturus system. We need to get them out." Fuller nodded. "I'll need to pick my own team." "You'll have whatever you need," Morrison said. "This mission is top priority. If we can rescue even some of our people, it will show everyone that we don't abandon our own." Fuller spent the next day selecting her team. She chose people she trusted, who had worked with her before. Jack Nelson, a weapons expert with steady hands and a calm mind. Elena Rodriguez, a pilot who could fly anything with engines. Ben Wright, a doctor who had served in crisis zones on 3 planets. And 5 others, each with special skills needed for the dangerous mission ahead. Their ship was small and fast, designed to avoid detection. It had no name, only a number. ST-17. The letters ST stood for Shadow Team. As they prepared to leave, Fuller gathered her team. "This mission is simple but not easy," she told them. "We go in quiet. We find our people, we get them out. Then we make sure the station can never be used again." Elena looked up from her pre-flight checks. "How many of our people are we talking about?" Fuller's face was grim. "According to our intelligence, around 300 from New Eden Colony. The rest have been moved elsewhere or—" She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. They all knew what the Zorlaxians might be doing with human captives. The journey to the Arcturus system took 4 days. They traveled quickly but carefully, avoiding main travel routes where Zorlaxian patrols might be watching. On the 3rd day, they picked up a distress signal from a small research vessel. It was under attack by a Zorlaxian scout ship. "We should help them," Ben said, watching the tactical display. Fuller shook her head. "Our mission comes first. We can't risk being detected." Jack looked at her. "Commander, if we don't help, they die." Fuller was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded to Elena. "Change course. Weapons ready. But we hit them fast and then we're gone." The battle was quick. The Zorlaxian scout ship never saw them coming. One moment it was attacking the helpless research vessel. The next it was breaking apart as ST-17's weapons found their target. They rescued the research team, 6 scientists who had been studying a nearby asteroid field and dropped them at an Earth outpost before continuing their mission. On the 4th day, they reached the edge of the Arcturus system. The Zorlaxian processing station was hidden in the shadow of a large moon. It was bigger than Fuller had expected, a massive structure with multiple docking areas for ships. "How do we get in?" Elena asked, keeping their ship hidden behind a field of debris. Fuller studied the station scans. "There," she said, pointing to a small service entrance. "We'll use their own trash system to get inside. They'll never expect that." Their plan worked perfectly at first. They entered through the waste disposal area, using special suits to protect them from the toxic environment. Jack disabled the security systems in that section, allowing them to move deeper into the station without being detected. The inside of the station was unlike anything they had seen before. The walls seemed to pulse with strange energy. The air was thick and smelled wrong even through their breathing filters, and the sounds, distant screeching and clicking that they recognized as Zorlaxian speech. They moved carefully through the maintenance tunnels, following the life signs their scanners had detected in the lower levels. Human life signs, weak but present. What they found there would haunt them forever. In vast chambers throughout the station, human captives were being held in small cells. Many were injured. All looked thin and sick. But the worst part was what was happening in the central processing area. Fuller and Jack watched in horror from a hidden observation point as Zorlaxian scientists worked on unconscious human bodies. They seemed to be removing organs, tissue, even bone. Everything was being carefully placed in special containers and moved to waiting transport ships. "They're harvesting parts," Jack whispered, his face pale with shock and anger. Fuller felt sick but forced herself to focus. "We need to move now, alert the others. We're getting everyone out." The rescue operation changed from careful infiltration to desperate rush. They couldn't save everyone at once, so they worked in sections, freeing prisoners and moving them to emergency evacuation points where Elena had positioned their ship. The Zorlaxians discovered them halfway through. Alarms blared throughout the station. Security forces poured into the prison areas. Fuller and her team fought back with everything they had. "Get that door open," Fuller shouted to Ben as she fired at approaching Zorlaxian guards. Her weapons, energy pulses, tore through the alien bodies, but more kept coming. Ben worked frantically at the control panel, finally getting the door open to reveal 30 more human prisoners. "Come on," he yelled to them. "We're getting you out of here." In the end, they managed to rescue 231 survivors. The rest, Fuller didn't want to think about what had happened to them. As their ship pulled away from the station, Fuller gave one final order: activate the charges. Jack pressed a series of buttons on his control pad. Throughout the station, explosive devices they had planted during their rescue mission detonated simultaneously. The processing station broke apart in a series of massive explosions. As they headed back to Earth, the survivors told their stories. Horror stories of what the Zorlaxians had been doing, of how human bodies were being harvested for biological components, of how the aliens saw humans as nothing more than resources to be used. When they arrived home, Fuller reported directly to General Morrison and President Collins. She showed them the evidence they had gathered, the testimony of the survivors, the medical scans that proved what had happened. President Collins listened in silence. When Fuller finished her report, the president stood up. "This changes everything," she said quietly. "This is not just war. This is survival." New orders went out to all Earth forces that day. 3 simple words that changed the nature of the conflict. No mercy, no quarter, no prisoners. The hunt had become a crusade. 8 months passed. The war changed. At first, the Zorlaxians had been confident. They had better technology. They had more ships. They had conquered many species before. But they had never faced humans before. Dr. Eric Lawson worked in a large laboratory on Mars. He was 39 years old with tired eyes and hands that never seemed to stop moving. Before the war, he had designed energy systems for colony ships. Now he had a different job. "Try it now," he said to his assistant. The assistant activated a control panel. A shield of blue energy appeared around a test object in the center of the room. On the other side, a weapon fired. The energy blast hit the shield and scattered. Lawson smiled for the first time in days. "It works," he said. "Get this to production immediately. Every ship needs to have this shield within 2 weeks." The Zorlaxians had better shields than humans at the start of the war, but Lawson had captured a damaged Zorlaxian ship and studied its technology. He didn't just copy it. He improved it. On the front lines, Major Patricia Wells was changing how Earth ships fought. She was young for her rank, just 32, but she understood space combat better than officers with twice her experience. "They always attack in this formation," she explained to her pilots, pointing to a tactical display. 3 ships in front, 2 behind, 1 above. They never change. So we hit them here and here. Their formation falls apart, and we take them one by one. Wells had developed new battle tactics specifically designed to exploit weaknesses in Zorlaxian fleet movements. Her fighter squadron had destroyed 37 enemy ships without losing a single pilot. Then there was Colonel Daniel Martinez. Everyone called him the Ghost because he and his soldiers appeared out of nowhere, struck hard and vanished before the enemy could respond. His guerrilla strike force had destroyed 17 Zorlaxian outposts. They had not lost a single soldier. Martinez was a quiet man who rarely smiled. He had been a farmer on New Eden Colony. His wife and daughter had been taken by the Zorlaxians. No one knew if they were still alive. Martinez fought with cold precision. He never showed anger. He never rushed. He simply planned each attack perfectly and executed it without error. General Morrison watched these developments with grim satisfaction. Humanity was adapting, learning, improving. The Zorlaxians were not. They expected us to fight like them, Morrison told Admiral Carter during a strategy meeting. But we don't. We change. We improvise. We find new ways to win. Carter nodded. The latest intelligence reports show they're pulling back from 3 sectors. They're beginning to understand what they're facing. On the main display, a map showed human forces pushing deeper into space that had been controlled by Zorlaxians. Red markers showing enemy positions were being replaced by blue markers showing human-controlled areas. "What about the captives?" Morrison asked. "Any progress?" Carter's face darkened. "We've rescued about 2,000, but based on what the survivors tell us, most of the others are—" He didn't finish the sentence. Morrison understood. The Zorlaxians had taken 7,000, people from New Eden. Most would never come home. The thought made his hands tighten into fists. On the Retribution, now upgraded with Lawson's new shield technology, Captain Warren received a strange message. It came on all frequencies, in a format designed to be received by human communication systems. "What is it?" Warren asked her communications officer. "It appears to be a request for talks, Captain," the officer replied. "From the Zorlaxian High Command." Warren read the message carefully. The Zorlaxians wanted to meet. They were offering to return the remaining human captives in exchange for peace. "Inform Admiral Carter and General Morrison," Warren said, and "set course for Earth. I need to be at this meeting in person." 3 days later, Warren sat in the United Earth Parliament building as President Collins called a meeting of her War Council. All the top military leaders were there. So were representatives from the colonies and scientific divisions. "They want peace," Collins said, her voice neutral. "They offer to return our remaining people in exchange for an end to hostilities." Commander Fuller, who had rescued so many captives, spoke first. "How many are they offering to return?" 873, Collins replied. The room went quiet. Everyone did the math. 7,000 taken, less than 1,000 being offered back. "They think we're like them," General Morrison said, breaking the silence. "That will be satisfied with partial restitution." "They still don't understand what they've awakened," Admiral Carter added. Warren thought about the Zorlaxian commander who had laughed at her warning months ago, who had dismissed humans as young and soft. She wondered if he was still laughing. "Now, what is your recommendation?" Collins asked the group. No one spoke at first. Then Commander Fuller stood up. Her face was hard, her eyes cold. "My family was on New Eden. she said quietly. My parents, my brother and his wife, their children, the Zorlaxians took them all. If they're offering to return 800 people, that means they've already... She paused, controlling her emotions. That means the rest are gone. There's no bringing them back. She looked at the president directly. They need to understand that actions have consequences, that there is a price for what they've done. Collins nodded slowly. Captain Warren, your ship is the closest to their proposed meeting point. I'm assigning you to deliver our response. The meeting room was silent as everyone waited to hear what that response would be. Tell them no, Collins said finally. No. Peace. Not yet. Not until they understand what they've done. The next day, the Retribution approached the coordinates where the Zorlaxian diplomatic vessel waited. Warren stood on the bridge, watching the alien ship on the main screen. It was smaller than most Zorlaxian vessels, clearly designed for diplomatic missions rather than combat. They're hailing us, Captain, the communications officer reported. Put them through, Warren ordered. The screen changed to show a Zorlaxian face. Warren recognized Supreme Commander Zexitral, the same alien who had laughed at her warning months ago. He looked different now. His scales were duller. His upper eyes seemed more sunken. Captain Warren, the alien's voice came through the translator. We meet again. Have you brought your government's response to our peace offer? Warren looked at him for a long moment. I have, she said. She nodded to her weapons officer. The Retribution's new weapon systems activated. Before the Zorlaxian diplomatic vessel could raise shields or move, it was hit by multiple energy blasts. The ship broke apart in seconds. Warren opened a channel to all Earth forces. This is Captain Warren of the Retribution. I have delivered humanity's response to the Zorlaxian peace offer. She paused, looking at the debris floating where the alien ship had been. The hunt continues. Across human space, the message was received and understood. The Zorlaxians had taken too much, done too much. There would be no easy peace, no simple ending, not until justice was done. The war entered a new phase. Human forces pushed deeper into Zorlaxian territory. More captives were rescued. More enemy ships and bases were destroyed. The aliens began to retreat, pulling back to defend their core worlds. For the first time in their 1,000-year expansion, the Zorlaxians faced an enemy that was not just fighting back, but winning. The Zorlaxian High Command gathered in their central war room. For the first time in 1,000 years, they felt fear. Supreme Commander Zexitral was dead, his diplomatic vessel destroyed. Their fleets were being pushed back. Their outposts were falling one after another. The humans were coming. How is this happening? Asked War Chief Kolbak, slamming his clawed hand on the table. They are a young species. They have primitive technology. They should have surrendered months ago. Science Director Vexlor, older and calmer than the others, studied the battle reports on his screen. We made a mistake, he said quietly. We judged them by their age, not their nature. Explain, demanded Kolbaks. Most species we conquered developed space travel after thousands of years of peaceful evolution, Vexlor said. The humans achieved it while still carrying their warlike past with them. They spent centuries fighting each other before reaching the stars. They know war better than we do. On the main display, a map showed human forces advancing through Zorlaxian space. The aliens had ruled this region for centuries. Now they were losing it piece by piece. 10 of their colony worlds had already been taken. 3 major fleet bases had been destroyed, supply lines were cut. Outposts were isolated. We must negotiate, said Fleet Commander Jexitan, his voice tinged with desperation. Offer them more captives. We have no more captives to offer, Vexlor replied. The processing centers have completed their work. The human biological materials have been distributed throughout our medical system. The room went silent as they considered what this meant. The humans weren't just fighting for territory. They were fighting for vengeance. In Earth orbit, the newly promoted Admiral Olivia Warren stood on the bridge of the Retribution. The ship had been damaged in recent battles. but still served as the flagship of the human fleet. Admiral Carter stood beside her as they prepared for what they hoped would be the final push. "The intelligence is solid," Carter said, pointing to a display showing a distant star system. "The Zorlaxian homeworld is here, in the Zeta Reticuli system. Their remaining fleet has gathered to defend it." Warren nodded. "How many ships?" 217, Carter replied. "We have 193. Warren studied the tactical display. The numbers were close, but the quality of the ships and crews was not. Human forces had proven themselves superior in battle, after battle. And they had something the Zorlaxians lacked, a reason to fight that went beyond conquest or resources. "We launch in 6 hours, Warren said. "All ships are to be ready. This ends now." Across the fleet, soldiers and crews prepared for the final battle. On the assault carrier Vengeance, Commander Fuller checked her team's equipment one last time. They would be among the first to land on the Zorlaxian homeworld once the space battle was won. "Are you ready for this?" asked Jack Nelson, her weapons expert. Fuller thought about her family taken from New Eden, about the thousands of humans who would never return home. "I've been ready for this since the day they attacked our colony," she replied. The human fleet jumped into the Zeta Reticuli system at exactly Oro 600 Earth time. They emerged from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation, shields up, weapons charged. Ahead of them, the Zorlaxian defense fleet waited. For a moment, there was stillness in space. Then both fleets began to move. The battle that followed was the largest in human history. Energy weapons flashed across the void. Missiles streaked between ships. Fighters darted through the chaos, hunting targets. The dark of space was lit by explosions as ships from both sides were hit. On the Retribution, Warren watched the battle unfold. "Major Wells's fighters are breaking through their right flank," reported the tactical officer. "Colonel Martinez's strike force has disabled 3 of their command ships." Warren nodded, focused on the larger picture. The human ships were following the battle plan perfectly. They didn't attack in standard formations. Each group used different tactics, keeping the Zorlaxians off balance. Some ships charged straight ahead. Others attacked from the sides. Some hung back to provide cover fire. The Zorlaxians tried to adapt, but they couldn't match the humans' flexibility and determination. After 3 hours of intense fighting, their fleet began to break apart. "They're retreating toward their homeworld," Carter observed. "As expected," Warren replied. "Order all ships to maintain pursuit. We don't give them time to regroup." The remains of the Zorlaxian fleet fled to their homeworld, a large planet with 3 moons. Orbital defense platforms opened fire as the human fleet approached, but Dr. Lawson's improved shields held. One by one, the platforms were destroyed. The Zorlaxian homeworld panic spread. For 1,000 years they had been the hunters, the conquerors. Now they were the hunted. They watched as their mighty fleet was reduced to burning debris, as human ships took control of their skies. The first human troops landed near the Zorlaxian capital city. Commander Fuller led her team toward the high command building, a tall structure of metal and stone at the city's center. They met resistance but pushed through it. "Remember," Fuller told her soldiers, "we're here for their leaders, the ones who gave the orders, the ones who decided our people were just resources to be harvested." Inside the high command building, the remaining Zorlaxian leaders realized they had lost. War Chief Colbax ordered the last of his guards to fight to the death. Science Director Vexlor simply sat at his desk, waiting for the inevitable. "Commander." Fuller and her team fought their way to the central command room. The doors were sealed, but Jack placed explosive charges that blew them open. Inside, they found 6 high-ranking Zorlaxians. "Surrender," Fuller ordered, her weapon aimed at Colbax. Here, War Chief looked at the humans with hatred in all 4 of his eyes. "You think this is victory?" he hissed. "You are nothing, a brief flicker in the darkness of space. We have ruled for 1,000 years. We will rule again." Fuller stepped closer. "No," she said, "you won't." She could have killed him then, Part of her wanted to, for her family, for all the humans who had been taken, but she remembered who she was, what humanity stood for. "You are prisoners of the United Earth government," she said instead. "You will face justice for your crimes." 2. Weeks later, an interstellar tribunal began. Representatives from Earth, the Arcturians, the Meridians, and a dozen other species gathered to judge the Zorlaxian leaders. The evidence of their atrocities, not just against humans, but against many species over centuries, was presented. Admiral Warren visited the cell where Colbax was being held. The once proud war chief looked diminished in his prison uniform. "You should have killed me," he said when he saw her. "That would have been easier," Warren agreed. "But we're not like you." "What will happen to my people?" Colbax asked. "Your leaders will face justice," Warren replied. "Your military will be disbanded, your ships dismantled, your worlds will be placed under supervision until you prove you can live peacefully with other species." "You're destroying our civilization," Colbax said bitterly. Warren shook her head. "No, we're giving you a chance to build a better one. That's the difference between us. You took everything from us and we still offer you a future." As she turned to leave, Colbax spoke again. "If our positions were reversed, we would have shown no mercy." Warren paused at the door. "I know, and that's why you lost." In the years that followed, humanity's reputation spread throughout the galaxy. They were respected for their strength, but more importantly, for their justice. They had fought with fierce determination but had shown restraint in victory. Other predatory species who might have considered attacking human worlds or their allies remembered the fate of the Zorlaxians. They remembered what happened to those who ignored the warning, and they chose peace instead.